Welcome back to another episode of Re-Correlated Podcast. We are your hosts, Nathalie, Hollis, and August, and we are joined today by a very special guest, Quinnlan Varcoe. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Quinn.
Hi, I'm Quinn. I've been working in security operations centers for my entire career. I had become a SOC manager for about 1.5 years, and and I've handled a lot of incidents.
SOC life. I actually have my SOC shirt on. So I was really proud that we got, because not many people got them, but somebody wanted to make a sale, and I was like, we need shirts.
I remember at the first place I worked, we had socks like that you put on your feet themed after our sock, which is pretty funny.
My God.
That's great. Oh my God, I would love that. I need some socks.
Gotta sock it to them.
All our corny puns. Okay. So we're grateful to have you on, Quinn. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about differentiating the difference between mentorship, leadership, and management in IT and cybersecurity. I think a lot of people seem to get the three kind of mixed up, because you don't need to be in management to be a leader, but you also don't need to be an outgoing leader to mentor people on the side or help somebody out. And mentoring to me is really just like cultivating a younger generation of talent, or somebody else who's in your network that wants some help. And then leadership being more where you're actually leading and navigating the unknown with a team. And then management being like you're doing all the strategic pieces of it. What is your take on that? How do you differentiate the three?
Yeah, so I guess when I started becoming a lead / manager, I had that very confused and not something that I had worked out yet, because I got promoted very fast. I interviewed for a tier 1 position, and they hired me for lead, and then I was promoted to manager, and that was crazy. But I think the biggest difference is that managers are just in charge of people, but they don't have to lead anybody. They can just fire people, and it's a lot more bureaucratic. It's like paperwork. But I think a technical lead, that's a lot more fun. It's a lot more about building other people up, similar to a mentor, but more about encouraging them to do better. And then mentorship, which is more about teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are on LinkedIn, I've been told this before by other people that use our streaming platform, we are on YouTube. So if you want to go to YouTube and see us live, feel free to have at it. Sorry about that. But yeah, I think that's really important, because you're right. Management does become very bureaucratic. And that's why, when I was a manager and I was running SOC, I was like, I need to get out of here, because I just did not like the bureaucracy. I don't like playing politics. It's not my thing. But then I got to my new job, and they were like, we're going to promote you to manager. And I was like, oh boy. And there is no bureaucracy. So I think it really just depends on the organization that you're at, whether it's whether management is more bureaucratic or less bureaucratic, and it really depends on the culture too. August, thoughts on the differences between mentorship, leadership, and management?
Mentorship is not necessarily just tied to cybersecurity. You can find a mentor outside of your field, right? It's more about guiding someone that doesn't have the direction that they need to, whereas leadership is someone that, while they can also be your mentor, is going to encourage you to be the best version of yourself. While a manager can be a leader, they don't all exist in a vacuum, right? It could be all three, it could be two, it could just be one. Your manager is looking for work-related things primarily, your workload, assigning your workload, managing what tasks need to get done that week, whereas a mentor doesn't do any of those things.
Yeah. Actually, my experience with mentoring, I had posted offering free mentoring, and I ended up giving out a free mentoring session to over 200 people probably. And I felt like that was a lot more enjoyable. Even though I repeated a lot of stuff, it was a lot more about like, how do I get this person to where they want to go in their career and grow as a person? And then management was like kind of what I thought was going to be, was like being in charge of other people, but really you're just in the middle, and like somebody tells you to do something and then you tell somebody else to do it.
Yeah, it's just a step down the line. I don't think I've mentored quite as many people as you have, primarily because I don't have the time. But a lot of the times that I'll get reached out to on LinkedIn, and you've probably experienced this, is you'll repeat a lot of the same things, but 9 out of 10 times, especially for people trying to break into cyber, you don't hear back. So that's 200 people is a lot. That's a lot of people.
I think like the reason for that, I think there's so many people trying to break into cyber, and I think we're told like, oh, cyber's up and coming, it's a growing field, and it is, but like if you can't afford to get your business running, you can't afford to hire somebody to do cyber. So
the junior roles are out there, and mentoring people to get into them is possible, but the problem is, like you said, it's an up and coming field, quote unquote, but those roles that are actually juniors aren't usually going to go up online. They're going to go by word of mouth to somebody, and trying to explain someone that you're mentoring that they need to get their name out there before that role comes up it's hard. It's really hard to try to communicate how important building a foundation of trust as a mentor for your mentees is so important, that it's hard to explain and put the actual weight of the value on it. I don't know really where I'm going with this, so I'm going to stop.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to say, I agree with that. Like when I broke into cyber, I didn't have any experience or degrees or certifications. I just showed up someplace and knocked on their door and was like, please, can I work here? I'll do anything. And I failed every question on the interview and they hired me. So
just because you had the right attitude and the passion and the drive and trying to communicate. A lot of it's skills that can't be taught, and trying to explain that to somebody in a nice way does not always go well.
I agree.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things to do as somebody who's trying to teach the skills that can't be taught, one of the hardest skills to teach is people teaching, especially younger generations. No offense, Gen Z, no offense at all.
Hollis.
I love Gen Z because they're so bold, but a lot of times you're conditioned from high school and from middle school and elementary school to think a certain way rather than to think for yourself and to back up your thoughts with evidence. You're kind of taught this is right, this is wrong, and getting somebody out of that mindset is super hard. Super hard.
I agree.
Hollis, I'm going to go to you now. What are your thoughts on the difference between mentorship, leadership, and management?
Yeah, so kind of pulling off of August's card there, I believe that management is more so resource management, right? You have your peers, not your peers, but your subordinate individuals, and then you have your superiors. And like Quinn said, you're kind of the middleman. You're getting crapped on from above and you're taking crap from below. A lot of the times, right, in managing that, it's kind of tough. And being a manager in general, right, if you're trying to balance that leadership and mentorship with your subordinates, it gets a little bit tough and a little bit painful. Not to say that, like August said, that all of it is in its own pillar or silo or even connected. In some cases it is, some cases it isn't. A lot of the times I would say that a manager has a tougher time being a leader and a mentor, generally in larger organizations or even medium-sized. The ones that have those teams that are split, where it's like, we have the head honcho, then we have the honcho below that, and the honcho below that. Just a whole lot of chiefs and not enough Indians. So there's not too much that can be done because you're in a lot of meetings and a lot of that bureaucracy. With that, though, I do apologize, Quinn. You can go.
I was just going to say something that surprised me when I took over as a manager. Like, I thought it was like, okay, I'm just going to keep my staff really happy and they're going to like me and it's going to go great. I'm going to love my job. And I think for the most part, I did keep them happy. But in doing so, I didn't consider what my managers wanted because because I reported to the CEO when I was working as a SOC manager. He cares about his business and making money. And I think that's reasonable for a business owner to want. And that's not something that I always considered. Like, sometimes somebody messes up and somebody's going to have to speak to that on why it happened and how we're going to fix it. And sometimes that's going to involve pointing fingers, even if you don't want to.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a tough conversation, right? Even, for example, being in networking. I take down a site and now we're out of business for 3 or 4 hours. And who's going to answer for that besides me? It goes to my manager. And if they don't have the words or they can't say to that, I think it just leaves an opening for just a lot of communication breakdown. And it really just drives that point that being a manager can be absolutely painful.
But it doesn't have to be. One of the things I got really, really good at when I was a manager, well, now I am a manager again, so I can't say when I was a manager, but one thing I got really, really good at really, really fast is somebody would come to me and they'd be like, what's going on, blah, 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 and they'd give me all these details, and it's somebody that's higher up than me. But I never took them just at face value because I'm sure they only see one perspective of the story. So I got really good at being like, let me go gather the details for you and get back to you on what actually went down or what actually happened, and then come back with like the full story. So I'd go talk to my people and be like, okay, what actually happened? Here's what I was told, but what actually happened, because I'm sure I'm only getting one perspective. That way, even if I had to, condemn, not that I condemned anybody, but if I ever had to, I could go back and say, or correct, I guess it would be a better word, correct somebody. It was a much easier conversation because they weren't as defensive, and taking them out of that defensive position and being like, okay, here's what I heard, but give me your perspective. And I would actually listen to it. I felt that was a very, very helpful technique that I picked up pretty quickly.
I just realized I forgot my laptop charger. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to step off screen real quick.
No
worries.
No worries.
All right. So, what are some identifying, we all have had some great leaders that we've worked for or worked with, or managers that we work with. So what are some great qualities that you have seen in leaders or managers that you really truly admire that you would want to implement if you ever in a management position? I'll go to August first, and then I can repeat the question first.
One of my favorite qualities, and this might just be me, is that I like a lack of micromanagement, and that being I am entrusted to do my work, obviously within reason, right? Because managers, leaders, whoever is above you still has their job to do, regardless of who you are. But if you have a manager that entrusts you to do your work, for me, that motivates me much more than someone hovering over my shoulder. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way. On the other side of that is obviously the flip, is somebody that's always asking you what you're doing and checking in and not entrusting you to do your job and just completely bothering you all the time. I haven't had a lot of experience with that in cyber. That's more so from my military time, but I don't know about y'all, but when someone is not letting me do my job, it makes me want to not do anything as much as them wanting me to do the job.
Well, and if they're constantly micromanaging you, the amount of time it takes to respond to that micromanagement is half of your day sometimes. So it's like, why would you rather me actually be working on an incident or working on what I'm supposed to be working on? Or do you want to consistently ask me for a new status on something I just gave you a status on? If you're going to micromanage me, I'm going to spend all day updating you rather than doing the thing that you want me to do. So which one is it?
Yeah, I agree with that. The hourly updates during incidents can be very tough. I mean, I understand how critical it is, and I know that a lot of people need updates, but at the end of the day, if we need to shut something down, if we need to deal with an incident and stop ransomware from spreading, I don't have time to update you. A lot of times it leads to me having somebody be a scribe, write the details.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aaron said Daniel Pink's book Drive is an amazing read that takes into account what August was saying. So definitely going to have to go pick that book up. So Quinn, what are your thoughts on like qualities that you really have seen from leaders or managers that you, or even mentors that you've worked with, that really you want to implement in your own management technology or techniques and tactics?
Yeah, so when I was working for Medicare and Medicaid, I was being, I guess, mentored even by our shift lead. His name was Isaac, and his training was so amazing because, yeah, what everybody's saying, what August is saying, he didn't micromanage. And when he trained, he didn't just like tell me what to do. He gave me a challenge and gave me a chance to solve the problem. And in doing so, I was able to like grow a lot in my technical ability and in my analytical skills. So instead of just training me to close alerts, it was like, here's how you use Splunk, and here's how you actually find a true case of malware being installed or an actual case of ransomware. So I think that's important, is like giving people room to mess up, room to fail, so they can grow from it within reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to give an intern day one the chance to deal with ransomware right off the bat. Like, I'm not just like, oh yeah, go throw you to the wolves. Like, we'll slowly work you up to that, but I'm going to give you, I like that. Yeah. Giving somebody else a problem to solve and letting them think through it and then come to you with questions and giving them room to grow and have space.
Yep,
Hollis?
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm going to be completely cliche here, but fail hard and fail fast, right? Fail upwards. Really, leaders, what they need to do, like mentors, is instill trust in their subordinates and trust them to be able to do the job. I mean, hey, somebody messes up. Anyone can mess up. That leader can mess up on a perfect day. Anyone can have that issue. Taking that and helping them learn from it, helping them grow from it, or like you said, having them give you a task and having them run with it. Whether that's like when I first started at Canfor, right? It was an immediate like, hey, can you configure something in BGP? And I was like, I mean, that's the whole outside of the network, but yeah, I'm here for it. I did it, right? I learned from it, and there was the little mistake I made of I didn't put high availability into it. So I had one route and I didn't have a secondary route. That was one of the only caveats there, but it gave me a chance to grow. And I love that in leaders and management is being able to trust your subordinates, as well as that not having that micromanagement side. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to trust people, like your people have to trust you as much as you trust them. So like if you don't trust them, they're not going to just like give you trust. It's not going to garner more trust from them. It's going to be hard to get that trust. So I think that's really important. Still trying to decide what my favorite, like one of my favorite techniques of leadership is, I would have to say being honest, because it's going to garner that trust, right? Like, I respect leaders that are blatantly honest with me, whether it was a mistake that I made or, maybe I need to improve on something, but being honest and not sugarcoating it, because I'm not going to pick it up if you're just trying to like have a snide comment of like, well, you should have done better. Like, I'm not going to pick that up. It will go over my head and I'm too busy to deal with that. So being honest and being like upfront of like, hey, here's the problem. How are we going to work together to fix it? And being willing to work together, because it's not just like you against the world. It's a team effort to fix the problem, right?
Yeah, I think across the entire security industry, cybersecurity industry, fostering the ability to fail and be honest about messing up is very important. Like, if you miss an alert and it was an important alert, I may need to know about that as the SOC manager. Like, you can't just sweep it under the rug, because at the end of the day, like if somebody got breached, that's your fault. So.
Yeah. Especially in like, oh man, in incident response, SOC life, like, yeah, a lot of weight goes on your shoulder as a leader.
No.
All right. So let's talk about what are some like differences in goals that you've seen, such as like personal development, team success, or project completion in like the different roles, mentorship, leadership, management? Anybody can go. It's a free for all.
Did you say it one more time?
Yeah. What are some differences in goals, like personal development, team success, or project completion that you've noticed between mentorship, leadership, and management? Like obviously management is probably more of the project completion. But I would argue that like team success is kind of like an everybody sport. But what are your thoughts on that?
So I think like maybe management can be about project completion, but I think that's more of a tech lead type of thing to focus on. Just from my experience with management, it's more about like, is this person showing up to work every day, and are they, is there some kind of behavioral issues, that sort of thing, versus like tech lead where it's like growing as a team, doing things together, inspiring others. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. What are your thoughts, August?
I feel like leadership and mentorship goals are kind of gonna be similar, in that aspect that as a leader and as a mentor, you want to see whoever you're mentoring or leading succeed, regardless of their role in the field or what role they're playing where you work too, because they all kind of go hand in hand. It doesn't matter if you really work with them or not to lead or mentor them. Management is kind of what Quinn said. It's more of a, is this person happy at work? If you're a good manager, obviously that's a whole nother topic for a bad manager, but are they coming in on time? Are their work habits regular? Are they performing their job duties? Are they outperforming their job duties? And do I need to consider this person for a higher role? Things like that. Leadership and mentorship don't really fall into a team success for that. That's kind of more of a management thing. Project completion, I guess it depends, like what Quinn said, it can be a tech lead or a manager. I guess that's organization specific. Yeah, I think that's my thoughts on that.
I think that, like the manager needs to make sure the deadline is met, but I think that should maybe be communicated from the manager to the lead, a leader, technically the same thing. Just because like, I think there's like this, I don't know what this concept is called, but like this group mentality that like talking to your boss is one thing and talking to a leader is like a whole nother thing. And I think a leader doesn't necessarily even need a special title. Like they don't need to be titled leader. Just like in the behavior that they have, in the ways that they do things, it's very technically proficient, and also like they conduct themselves in a way that inspires you to also do that.
Yeah, I would agree. A great value of a leader is one that can inspire you to want to learn or want to do more, or be curious, more curious. If they can inspire you to do that, they can inspire you to do a whole lot, and they can figure out how to make you inspired to do maybe a task that's not as much fun and make it more fun for you. Hollis, what are your feels?
Yeah, so something I like to do, I don't consider myself a lead at the moment, although I kind of technically am. I love to put up a lab. I will put together a lab with my peers, and I'll say, hey, I want to configure this network this way. And I will pull up a session and I'll say, hey, let's get on this. I want your thoughts. I want to see how you do this. I want to see how we're going to do this together. And so as a leader or leadership, right, that personal development and driving them along and helping them pursue what they want, right, I'm not going to say, hey, do you want to configure this way? And then when they say something else, I'm not immediately going to be like, well, I mean, I'd do it this way. I want those thoughts. I want what they think. And I want to help drive it further. And that'll help, of course, the business down the line, or if they decide another organization, that's completely up to them. But when it comes to like team success or project completion, I think that falls more on management And once again, like August said, it depends on the company. I think a manager themselves is more focused on actual personnel allocation and what this person is for this project, this person is for this project. That lead does kind of deal into that project completion and following those dates. But I don't think in some circumstances, right, where they're going to be fully in that project management type style, where more so it is that manager. So,
Yeah, for me, it's more so I think managers have to be aware of deadlines. They should be giving them out, like Quinn said. You should be the ones, if you're a manager, you should be the ones delegating what the deadline is at the beginning of the project before anybody even starts on it, so they can tell you, so your leads can tell you, hey, that's really not a realistic deadline for this. Like, we might need more time. So I do think that managers still have to worry about deadlines, but it's more so, I think you're correct. It's not about completing the deadline, or it's more about, did we meet the deadline? Like, it's not about completing the actual work and the project work. That is definitely much more on your lead, or yeah, that's definitely much more on your lead. If you have a lead, if you're in a small company, you might be in all three positions and just juggling and running around like a crazy person. Sometimes that happens. So trying to read the time. Let's see. What are some differences in methods and strategies that you've seen deployed between the three to be effective, like to be an effective mentor? Because we haven't really given mentors much love on this episode, and I think mentors are very important. Finding a great mentor is really, really important. So let's focus on mentors, and then we'll kind of go with the others. Guys. Sorry, we're in a shared document right now, and they are messing it up.
Why are you outing me?
So what are some like differences in methods and strategies? Like what methods and strategies do you see mentors employing in the industry to basically to mentor others? And then we'll go down the line, leadership and then management. So Quinn, go right ahead.
So I think the reason I haven't talked about mentorship as much, I think because like in the cybersecurity industry specifically, I think that title can be exploited on LinkedIn to make money. I think a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm a mentor. Give me $300 and I'll teach you something. I obviously don't do that. I just meet with people and talk about their career goals. I think that it's kind of further removed from leadership and management just because it's more about like just listening and helping them grow. An example of this is all these entry-level people that reached out to me, they typically had the same questions, which is, what certifications do I get? Why am I not getting response to my job applications? What do I do next in my career?
Yeah, you're kind of like their visionary for them to help them lay out what roadmap might work best, or just give them ideas of different ways to go about getting the jobs or landing the jobs or getting their resumes seen more as a mentor. And like even in my current like position, we have like a whole apprenticeship program, and I'm one of the mentors on that. And it's really about like getting people to think outside of the box, and those kind of skills, kind of developing them in a unique way so that they can use those in other future jobs or whatnot.
Hollis, would you like to go next, or would you like me to go?
Thank you for picking me for me. Thank you. So, like you said, it's kind of that idea of not really dragging people along, but if they want it, have them run with you. I mean, you can drag them along. If you really like somebody, you can pick them up by the feet, kind of sling them around, say, hey, you're going to come with me on this adventure. Like, we're here together. But it's really up to the person how receptive they are to it. I will say it's probably not the best method, but with that, right? If you could pick someone up and not just say, "Hey, tie up your bootstraps, let's do this," and more so like, "Hey, let's tie them together." Like, you may not know how to tie the knot, but I'm here for you. I think that really defines a mentor there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you shouldn't be ever driving anybody by their bootstraps down the wrong way or anything like that. Like, we went back to an Army slogan there. For me, I think like communication is a really great strategy. I wouldn't really call it a technique, but I would call it a strategy, or being able to a skill even that's really, really important in mentorship. That it's important in all of them, but it's particularly important in mentorship because you can easily get lost in, well, this is how I did it, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody else. So you really have to be able to actively listen. It's not just listening, but actively listen to the person that's talking to you and kind of give them feedback based on what they are actually saying, and making sure that you're not missing any of the details as to where they're at, what they need to do, how to help them out better. What are some methods and strategies or skills for leaders that you've seen? And I would agree. Some mentors with Quinn, some mentors out there, I forgot to add this. Some mentors out there are really just like looking for money. So be careful who you're actually getting mentored from, and make sure you do your research on people that are mentoring you. How long have they been in the field for? Are they even in a current job at a cybersecurity company? Like, are they actually even working in the field, or are they just somebody who's just trying to make money off of you?
I think that's a big one because I've seen a lot of that. Like, I think people who are cybersecurity influencers make so much money. It's actually crazy. Like, you would probably make 10 times as much money being an influencer, and you don't even need to work in the field for that.
Half of them have me blocked, so you can feel free to drop their names if you want to.
I won't, but it's pretty crazy.
We're not live on your page this week, August.
Oh, God. I feel like I should name drop, but I won't, out of being a good person.
Sir, we don't need heat on the podcast. We're already fired, man. You gotta calm down.
So, like, I don't see anything wrong with getting paid for work, but I think it's one thing to like charge somebody for like a 30, like it's just like a 15 to 30-minute conversation. It doesn't need to be charged. Like, that's not something you charge people money for.
I think it's very predatory to charge entry-level people $100 an hour or $50 an hour to explain to them that there is an unlimited amount of resources that are free of cost that you can research yourself. Charging someone that is already in a vulnerable place $100 an hour or $50 an hour, or trying to get them to buy your book, is so shitty to me that it infuriates me. Like, it makes me so mad. And what my biggest problem with it is that a lot of these people have been in the field for a really long time, and they either fell into their role, or their first cybersecurity role, or they had a ton of IT experience, and the landscape of entry-level talent is changing so much that, yeah, I do to an extent think that there should be some baseline understanding of IT fundamentals, but I don't think you need 3 to 5 years to start in an entry-level field. I don't.
I agree.
And it's just, it makes me so upset. Like, I had so many people that devoted their time to me, and you have all probably experienced this when you were trying to get in. Outreach. People were helping, hey, I'll give you an hour of time, or let me look at your resume, or you should try this instead of this. And the fact that there's people that have X amount of followers, I don't want to get too specific because I'll out somebody, but they're charging for their time when they've barely been in the field, or been in the field a long time, and are just taking, and I could rant about this all day, so I'm going to stop, but it makes me really upset that people are taking advantage of entry-level people for financial gain when there's plenty of people they could outreach to for help.
Yeah,
for
I
free.
agree. I think it's so weird. There's such a large market for it. I think everybody in cyber is like, yeah, I'm making a ton of money. I love my job. And it's just become this thing online where everybody wants to do it. And there's like, I mean, I posted about free mentorship and I had like 200 meetings and people were asking me, how much do I charge? And I was like, what are you talking about? Why would I charge you? So
it's just irritating because there is space for entry-level talent, but these people that are saying that all you need to do is this and this are lying to people. It's an incredibly incredibly, what's the word I'm thinking of? It's really hard to get into entry-level field when you're competing with 100,000 other people. And when you're just saying it's easy, it's not. It's probably one of the hardest things time-wise that someone is ever going to do, especially if they're trying to work a full-time job while they're trying to break into. And if you're trying to sell the fact that it's just buy my book or sign up for my networking course, it's bullshit. And
I agree. So for me, like, I didn't have to do any of that. Like for me, I was like learning. I lived in Europe for a year I was doing like foreign exchange, and I was like learning how to like steal identities and spend fake money and like do bad things on the dark web. And that's kind of what taught me what I needed to know. But I didn't go to school for it. I think a lot of like the old timey cyber people, they didn't. Like they just had experiences. And like, yeah, I agree. Selling a book is not going to get people very far.
And I think there's a lot of I know I watched Cyber Warrior Studios, our good friend Derek, who shout out Derek Color. Hello. Last week he had a podcast episode and it was about scams. And like a lot of these people that are getting scammed out. Like anytime I see I can guarantee you a 6-figure salary in cybersecurity in 6 months or something that's being like advertised, and I've seen some of them. It makes me cringe because nobody can guarantee anything. It's all about what you're willing to put into it. And
I made $18 an hour. I worked night shift. I slept for 4 hours a night and woke up from my math class at 8 a.m. And that's how I got into cyber. And I like, it was not easy, but I did only apply to one job. That is true. So.
I've been in school in one shape or another for almost 5 years now, between a boot camp that the military paid for and the bachelor's program I'm in. And at one point I was working 60 hours a week in help desk and then another 20 hours a week as a paid intern in a SOC. So when people tell me that it's that easy, I'm like, where the hell was I when this is like, how is it that easy? Where was I? Have I been asleep this whole time?
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get a lucky break though. Like I know I've been the person where like I've seen some people get a lucky break and they're like, oh, it's so easy getting into cyber. And I was like, no, you just got lucky. It's not that they weren't talented or whatnot. It's not that easy for everybody. So you have to kind of understand that like you're out there, it's a very competitive market. So just because you had an easy time breaking in doesn't mean that it's easy for everyone.
I kind of try to talk about it like if you're like an outbound salesperson, like you are selling yourself as a candidate for a job, especially with no experience.
Yeah, and Andrew says it's only easy when you have connections. So true, because I was trying to do it without a network on LinkedIn. I had back when I was trying to get in, I was like, LinkedIn, that's just so dead. My dad uses LinkedIn. I was like, that's the only social media my dad's on, but he uses LinkedIn. I was like, no. And then like I realized how beneficial having LinkedIn is and like how beneficial growing a network is on LinkedIn. And obviously the power of LinkedIn.
I want to highlight Andrew's next comment. Hiring managers and recruiters don't always know what they're exactly looking for. And unless you have a perfect job description, you're never really going to know if you qualify for the job unless you know someone that is hiring for that role. Not the actual hiring manager, but whoever your lead will be. And that's why networking is so important. And I try to tell this to everybody, because it doesn't matter if you can set up an entire sim in a home lab by yourself if nobody knows who you are.
Yeah. Well, and same thing with me not having any experience, like not even a single day of cyber experience. I go walk in and knock on the door, and the CEO comes out, and then he introduces me to the CTO, who introduces me to the SOC manager. That's how you get in, by talking to people, and that's the only way.
I'll argue that hiring managers do know what they want. It's the bad ones that don't. Hiring manager really is going to be your lead or your manager. It might be an HR person that's hiring or you making the description, but generally your hiring manager actually knows what they're talking about.
I think that the problem with this is that in cybersecurity, your job description is never going to actually entail your full role, because the teams are small and you're always going to have additional duties. You might not know how to do them, but you're going to learn them if you're going to get hired by that company. And y'all have been in this field a little bit longer than I have, but that's how it's been where I've been. So that's at least my experience.
I love how like every job requires that you know Wireshark, and maybe like 5 out of 100 companies use Wireshark.
All right, look, I use it a lot. Thank you.
You don't count IT.
Hollis is the only one. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah. Yeah, I think that sometimes hiring managers, like good hiring managers, they do know what they want. And like, they're the ones that will sit down before a role's posted and they're like, okay, here are the day-to-day duties. They're not going to give you every single duty. They're not going to give you every single piece of the job description, because that's not your day-to-day duties. But here are the things that you're going to be doing on a regular basis. There's going to be other tasks that we might give you. Maybe it's a project. I was a fan of giving projects out to people. But like, it might be a project, it might be something else, but like, I love what Andrew says next. Never let HR folks write the job description. Absolutely with them. They can review it and absolutely like, make sure that it's cleaned up, but they should never be the ones that are actually writing it. And at the end of the day, the hiring manager should always have final approval over what is posted, because I've seen it go back to HR changes a few words and moves some things around, and you're like, well, that changes the whole meaning of what that bullet says, and now it's not relevant.
I think like at this point in cyber, because of how hot the industry is, like, I don't think you ever actually need to make a job description. Like if you just say like, come and apply at my job, I'm hiring entry-level SOC analysts or even senior level SOC analysts, you're going to get 200 applicants just like through LinkedIn messages.
I feel like 200 is so low. Like I think there was an application that had over 1,000 in under 2 hours. That was an entry-level SOC analyst, and if that doesn't highlight the entry-level pipeline talent problem that we have, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that like I want to touch on is we were talking about like recruiters before, and I kind of feel bad for recruiters because there have been a couple that like, I've thought it in my head. I didn't say it out loud, but I was just like, you really have no idea what role you're recruiting for right now. And it's very obvious because they're like, oh yeah, you're an expert in this, this, and this. And they're like trying to like make me out to be this like huge expert in everything. And I was like, no, I do not want you to say that to this employer. Like, no, let's be honest about what my skill set is. I'm proud of what I've built, but like, let's not over embellish it.
It was so funny. I applied to a job recently, and I always reach out to the recruiter. And this one was like, I don't want to buy anything. I'm like, what do you mean? She didn't even know to SOC what.
You're selling.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. I don't want to buy anything. Wow. Yeah. Were you the one that was hiring, or were you the one that was like
I was
looking
applying.
at the role? I was
applying for a SOC lead position, and I was like, oh, SOC lead, okay, that sounds cool. I messaged her, and then she's just like, I don't want to buy anything. I'm like, I'm applying for a job you posted. Like you literally posted that on LinkedIn. It wasn't like a, like application. It was like her post from like an hour ago.
Did you forget about your own post, man?
Yeah.
August, do you have any experience with any recruiters?
I've had some good and bad experiences with recruiters. More so of the small boutique recruiters that are actually specialized in cybersecurity, like Joe
Yep.
Hudson before he went to TCM. Sean Coe with HC Resource, I've had some pretty good experiences with. I had a good and bad experience with, I don't know if he's listening, but we're on friendly terms, so hopefully he doesn't get too mad at me. His name is Pete Strauss. He laid out probably, I interviewed for a SOC position at Lodestone. Was probably the most clear recruiter I've ever spoken to on job requirements and job descriptions. When I say that I also had a bad experience with him, and this is everyone's about to learn something about me. If someone tells me I'm not going to do something or I can't do something, it makes me want to do it more. And he told me that I would not get 6 figures with a year of experience in cybersecurity, and he was wrong. So that was my bad experience. You know, I don't think it was necessarily bad from his end, because typically speaking, that is true. You're not going to get 6 figures with a year of experience in cybersecurity unless you, going back to networking, know the right people. But, and then the bad experiences, they're just, I don't really deal with recruiters that often. I have built a decent enough network that most of the roles that I've applied for have been straight word of mouth or referrals, or someone saying, hey, do you want to come work with me? And then I'll go interview, and it goes one way or another. So my bad experiences with recruiters is fairly minimal.
And Andrew says he's busted so many using cut and paste from Google and resumes. I literally will not send a Word version of my resume to any recruiter, because like I've caught one literally being like expert in cybersecurity, and I was like, that's not helpful. Nobody wants to see, like, nobody's gonna look at my resume if you put that on there. Like, I am an expert at this skill, I'm an expert at that skill, but don't put that on my resume. And if I don't want something on my resume, like, I don't want you to put it on there. If I haven't put it on there myself, I don't want you putting it on there. August or Hollis, what are your thoughts on recruiters?
You know, it's really been a hit and miss for me. You have some recruiters that are kind of versed in technology, and in talking with them, they can understand some of the terminology and actually direct me into parts of the job description that actually reflects some of my experience. Then you have the recruiters that are just point and blank, like, I don't know what this is. I'm hiring for this role. You've applied for it. I have these questions from the hiring manager. Can you answer them for me? And then they relay the information. I don't think it's a good or bad experience. I think it's just an experience. I don't fault HR people, because that's their job. That is what they do. You don't have to know technology, and I could honestly not care that much if you know technology. Like, you're doing what you do, and I do what I do. But in some of those experiences, there are the individuals that will point in a different direction, like you said, and they will take my experience and throw and say that I'm an expert at something. For example, there was one recruiter, when I gave them information on, I think it was OSPF, they were like, oh, they sent it to the hiring manager, and I actually got CC'd on the email, and they said I'm an expert. And I was like, I am far from an expert. I am so far from an expert, it hurts. And I will never claim to be an expert. In fact, technology is so wide that I maybe know a 10th of it, and I'm happy with the 10th. So with that, right, a lot of things I'll look at like that. It's an experience. Whether you want to classify it as good or bad, that is your opinion. But I like to ride the wave of it. It's neutral. So,
you know, I've never got a job. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I never got a job from applying for a job. Every single cybersecurity job I've ever had, it's because a recruiter reached out to me first. I think it's pretty crazy, and I think most people have a similar experience.
Yeah, I've gotten most of my jobs, like my cybersecurity jobs, technically, because I was a system admin / system automator before. And most of my jobs that I've gotten, like all my jobs I've gotten in cybersecurity, have come from network rather than recruiters. And I've applied with so many recruiters. And like I said, there were so many that tried to change my resume. The minute they'd ask for a Word version, I was like, nope, you can't have it. You can waste your time trying to change my resume, or tell me what you would like me to do to change it. And I will discuss with you whether I'm comfortable changing it that way or not. And here's the thing, as a candidate, you're just as much their client as everyone else, like as the people that are looking for the talent. So they want to keep you just as happy so that you give others referrals. I have built some great relationships with recruiters, so I don't think they're all bad. I think that you'll find some that are really hit or miss, and then you'll find others that are like super excellent and they really know their stuff, and like they can talk the tech. Like some of them I'm really impressed. They can talk the technical lingo, and it's not just like they're BSing you. It's they can actually talk the technical lingo, right? Like and those ones I've found I've been very impressed with their ability to kind of pre-screen and really understand what this job or this role is looking for. With that being said, we have run a little bit late today. I do apologize, but not really. Only half apologize, but we're going to wrap up with some nuggets of knowledge. So, Hollis, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I really appreciate Quinn's perspective today, and a lot of what she has said has kind of opened me in a different perspective of someone that has kind of been in that lead role and come from a background that hasn't been in tech, right? So I've dealt with a lot of people that have been in tech a while, and they're usually the people I talk with. So in her shared experiences, I think the nugget I'm going to walk away with is trying to remember the points you made. It was about the I'm failing here. When you were in Europe, the experience you brought, right? Like taking that time and actually putting that effort in, right? I think that's a nugget that I'll take with me is you don't have to be in it to want it, right? You can be outside of it and looking for it. So
And make it happen. All right, August, you go next.
I'm going to pick on Quinn again. Something that I've not always been really good at is putting myself in other shoes. And Quinn mentioned a manager is always getting orders from above, right? So I need to personally be a little more understanding of not necessarily where I'm at now because I have a great manager, but putting myself in their shoes and realizing that they're just doing their job. And part of their job is telling me or you or whoever is listening what to do. And that's something that I'm going to take away from this today.
Quinn, go ahead. Nugget of knowledge.
Oh, I didn't know I have to do that too.
Welcome to the Thunderdome.
What did I learn?
Don't do it
Or
again.
it could just be a wrap up, a conclusion.
Yeah, okay. Just a conclusion, I guess. Well, I just wanted to say, like, about the management thing. Like, I'm not saying that that all managers should, like, you should be nice to managers because they have it so hard. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But yeah, maybe just a little bit, like, understand that, like, some of them are not trying to be dicks. Like, that's just life. Yeah, I don't know.
My nugget of knowledge is finding out that I was not the only one in a management position that had to deal with bureaucracy and understanding that stress. So another one where we're picking on Quinn a little bit because she is our special guest. I thought it was just that company I was at, but I don't necessarily. I can see why it's more so because you have to worry about the numbers. You have to worry about somebody else's business too, right? Like as a manager, you're worried about everybody's the business itself, and that's why I guess some leader or like some managers are a little less empathetic of their people because they're more worried about the bottom line, which isn't necessarily wrong, but that's my nugget of knowledge. So we thank Quinn so much for joining us today. We hope you had a good time on Re-Correlated Podcast. Next week or 2 weeks from now, we will have Missy Lawrence on August 28th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4:30 Central Standard Time, 3:30 Mountain Standard Time, and 2:30 Pacific Standard Time. And we will be discussing user threat landscape being a top priority. We hope to see you all next time. Thank you so much and have a great night, everybody.
Thanks for coming out.
Yep. Thanks,
Bye.
folks.